I'm Steven Sawchuk, an assistant managing editor here at Education Week. My reporters cover curriculum and teaching. Last week, two groups of parents in Massachusetts sued the makers of two popular literacy curricula. It was a stunning turn in the long-standing reading wars directly aimed at two programs that just a decade ago were among the most popular materials used to teach kids to read. Let's dig in and see what happened. What programs were sued? The lawsuit names Lucy Calkins, a professor at Teachers College, Columbia University, who created the units of study in reading. The other two, Irene Fountas and Pinnell, respectively professors at Lesley University and Ohio State, created Fountas and Pinnell Literacy. Both of the programs were very popular with teachers. They emphasized teacher agency, a love of books, and choice reading. And although each did have some lessons on understanding how words work, they didn't emphasize learning how letters represent sounds, what's known as phonics. Parents in these lawsuits said their kids struggled to learn to read when taught using these materials, or had to get tutors involved for their kids to make progress. What did the parents say was missing? At base, they say these materials were deceptively marketed. The materials said they'd teach kids to read, and they didn't. But understanding what the lawsuit claims went wrong is more complicated. A large body of research says that good readers understand phonics, or how letters represent sounds. They know these connections automatically, so they can sound out new words rapidly on the page. Some kids struggle to learn sound-letter connections unless they've been taught phonics in a clear sequence. The lawsuit says that these reading programs didn't lay this out in a clear sequence, instead relying on a different method known as cueing. The idea here is that when a student comes to a new word they don't know, they could use several strategies or cues to figure it out. The students might use the sounds and letters, but they might look for a picture clue, for example, or they might look at words they know in the sentence to see what would make sense. The curricula's prompting guide sometimes asks students, think about what word might fit, or check the picture. It turns out that good readers don't make these kinds of educated guesses to read a new word. They rely on sounds and letters, on their phonics knowledge. The authors of the material should have known this, the parents say. The research has been available for a long time. What happens now? The lawsuit is framed as a class action, the idea that any parents who thinks their students was harmed could join it. But it's up to the court to decide whether the lawsuit can move forward and whether it can be granted class action status. If so, probably tens of thousands of students could be covered, although there's no national database showing just how many students in Massachusetts or in any other state were taught using these materials. My reporters haven't yet gotten an on-the-record comment from any of the publishers or authors, though that's not unusual when you're dealing with litigation. Another wrinkle, both sets of materials have been revised with what Calkins and Fountas and Pinnell say is a stronger emphasis on phonics, although people debate whether these changes are sufficient. What are the chances it could be successful? We really don't know. Everyone that my reporters talked to said they'd never heard of a lawsuit like this before. For one thing, curricula don't teach themselves. Teachers have to interpret and implement curricula, and they do so in different ways. It's also true that the cueing ideas, remember the teaching method that was used instead of phonics, have been around since the 1960s, long before these materials were published. And those ideas were widespread. They showed up in all kinds of places, in teacher professional development, in teacher preparation programs. At one point, they were even on licensing exams for teachers. There was a whole information ecosystem replicating these same incorrect ideas. We've heard some concern from researchers, even those who weren't a big fan of either of these programs, that it might harm the nation's focus on reading. Phonics is important, they say, but so are other things kids learn in reading, like content, vocabulary, and reading fluently. Maybe we'd be better off focusing on how to combine all those parts in the right amounts and in the right sequence to give kids the best chance of becoming strong readers. Thanks for taking a few minutes with me today, and make sure to visit edweek.org for all of EdWeek's reading and literacy coverage.